everyone. Nice to see you all here and hope you've enjoyed today so far. So now we're going to have a panel discussion hosted by some fantastic people. So we have Nicola, Nikki and Hannah from Women in Test, who are going to have a panel discussion as well. So take it away.
Probably really confused you because I am actually part of SIGGIS. No, not your fault. It's mine. I am actually part of SIGGIS, but I'm also helping Hannah and Nikki as well. It will all make sense soon. But obviously this is a panel for Women in Test, and I've got the opportunity to interview the founders of Women in Test. If you've been under a rock for the last couple of months, you must have seen posts if you've been on LinkedIn and socials for Women in Test. They kind of posted one day and overnight it took off. You know, there's clearly room in the industry for a test group that focuses on women predominantly, but also is open to all and, you know, talks about some of the things that we experience in our careers. So without further ado, I'm going to allow Nikki and Hannah to introduce themselves. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm Hannah. I founded Women in Test with Nikki, but by day I am a recruiter. No hate, please. There was already some comments. I now work internal, so I came from an agency background, recruited only testing for the last 3 years, and now I work with 2i Testing as a consultancy, and I'm internal.
Hi, so I'm Nikki, and my day job, I work as a QA lead for cybersecurity technology in a global bank not far from here. And then extra activities, Women in Test, which I founded with Hannah, and thank you to Gamathi and Nicola, who are heavily involved in strategically as well as, you know, helping events and so on. But Nicola, before we start, I just want to say a massive thank you to you for giving us this opportunity to sit here in front of everyone today. So
if it didn't happen today, it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Best day to do it, really. Okay. All right. And yes, Gamathi's here as well in the front row. He's speaking later this afternoon. Is it on blockchain?
Blockchain, AI,
Yeah. So you
everything
must
else.
please listen to her talk later. So that intro is actually really great because it brings us on to talking about the roles for the group. So could you talk a little bit about that? Obviously you're founders, but what are your real founders are real, right? Sorry. But you know, what else do you see yourself doing, and what do you see other people who get involved with the group at the starting point? What do you see their roles being? Explain.
So where I had recruited in testing for the last 3 years, it actually led me to Nikki. So I reached out to Nikki. I seen her LinkedIn profile. She had ADHD coach, supporter of Women in Tech, multi awards that you won, and a leader in but nominated for many awards. And I reached out to Nikki. We had a really just organic general conversation, and then about the challenges that women face within testing. I think it's less than 35% of testing roles are made up by women, even less at leadership. And being a recruiter, I saw this day in, day out. Candidates, barely any women, especially at those leadership level roles, and the pressure from hiring managers to recruit women at leadership when there weren't any was really challenging. So I found Nikki, and I foresee my role from a recruitment background. It's so crucial to the role I'm doing now. It's those organic connections with people that I've had on a daily basis, trying to help them, now being able to build a community for them and a safe space where they can connect with one another, share challenges, insights, support, resources, and really just giving them a platform to actually have a voice. So it goes beyond just kind of sitting as, okay, I'm a founder of women, whatever that means. It's, no, I'm building a community, trying to help facilitate relationships being built so people can take that power of building their own networks into their own hands. That's my role. Nikki comes from a very different background
Yeah.
from me, obviously.
I think that's why it works, because we have kind of different lenses that we can bring to this. So my lens is within QA as such, and one of the things I really love about working in QA and technology is building very diverse teams, and the advantages and benefits that has to a team to look at the different perspectives. And working a lot with women in technology, although in some cases we might have a lot of women in test, depending on what team you're actually going into, if you're in an agile team, you might be one tester within a large amount of developers that are heavily male dominated. So you might not have that camaraderie that you get from other women within that team. I'm in a really fortunate position where in the company I work with, we have really great networks, but I appreciated from having contracted and worked in a lot of other organizations that not every organization has that sort of luxury. Not everybody has that safety to talk about some of the problems that we heard in some of the talks earlier today about testing, the connection between testing and mental health, or the connection between you know, what happens within our careers, how do we develop. And so my lens was slightly different to Hannah's, and I think that's why it really worked, having this sort of blend of perspective.
Yeah. So in terms of then other roles that people could get involved in, so to extend that question.
Yeah, we're really just starting at the moment. So this is, and it's important to note, women in test is not just for women. I think you prefaced that at the start, but it's for allies or anyone who works or might work with a woman in testing who wants to know more about how I can be a good ally, how I can advocate for women, how I can help pull them in and bring them up. That's what we need. We're seeing two key areas at the moment where it's a lack of women in leadership and then a lack of women coming through the funnel from an education perspective. So for us, it's allies that we're looking for, anyone who wants to get involved with speaking, with writing articles, coaching and mentoring, resources. There's a whole host of things you can get involved with, really.
I mean, we should mention we did an event last month already.
Yeah, I think so.
Crazy.
Finding your voice, and it was basically mostly I think about starting out as a speaker if you wanted to start speaking, but pretty much from that we've discovered there are lots more areas that we could be talking about, that it affects everybody's experience in testing. So I think that will be run again soon, right?
Yeah, we're looking at another one hopefully before the summer.
Yeah.
So in terms of roles, we would love for everybody to get involved. We're going to have space for everybody. We are putting together a focus group at the moment for people that want to be very much hands-on. We've kind of got a focus group within a focus group, so we need to kind of establish what that means. We're going to have lots of different pillars for people to focus on, whether it's mentoring, speaking, whether it's kind of supporting others. A big area that I'm really interested in is sponsorship, because quite often women are very heavily mentored, do this, do that, this, follow my path, but lacking sponsorship to actually get further. So there'd be lots of opportunity to lead in these pillars, or help hands-on, or just sit back and absorb and listen and learn. And we do feel like it is exclusive for everyone, but having these conversations lifts up everybody. It's not just lifting up women, it's going to lift up everybody, because I think the kind of conversations we have are conversations that lots of men want to have as well, and maybe don't always have that support to have these same conversations. So we hope that it will be very inclusive for
Okay.
everyone.
So our next question is, why did you decide to start the group? Kind of alluded to that in the previous, you know, why did you approach Nikki, and you know, why would you, as somebody in recruitment, want to do that? What were you seeing in industry that made you, you know, do that?
It was a lack of women who had support from other women or representation within their own organisations at work. So, and they didn't know where to turn to get support. So whether it was they didn't know how to, in a meeting, they were been spoken over by a lot of men in the room, and they didn't know how to interrupt or didn't know how to interject, because they were seen as being too pushy or not listening, or the typical stereotypical traits that you might be labelled with as a woman. So it was, for me, I was speaking to so many women who had that lacking in their own organisations, and I was connecting with women one-on-one. I actually spoke with Nikki, and put Nikki in touch with a wonderful woman who's not here today, but Nadia McKay, and we jumped on a video call with the three of us to go through some interview prep, to talk about how to deliver presentation, confidence, and it was a very organic connection that was made. So I thought, how can we do this on a wider scale for more women, actually give them a safe space to connect with one another and build their own networks? That was my key driver for it.
Yeah, one of my key drivers is just looking at the transferable skills that we get from being in these kind of networks that then can be applied to our roles. Things like, I think you've spoken about, and we heard this morning, the negotiation. There's lots of powerful skills that we need. We need to be able to deliver our value. What is it that we are actually doing? And the business value. How do we connect the business with what we are doing in testing? And if we are already feeling, or what I've heard from a lot of people are feeling like they're lacking confidence within their own smaller teams, how are they then being able to project on a larger scale to their senior leadership team exactly what it is they're doing and why they should have a voice at that table? And we thought, or certainly from my perspective, I thought about all of these other transferable skills that you get when you're at a network. You're talking about testing, you're talking about the different, it could be the different tools, it could be like methodologies, the different ways that people are applying their testing. And if we were to actually start looking at these sort of transferable skills and developing those within a safe space, and taking that back into testing, back into the technology world, where unfortunately a lot of women are actually leaving the industry. So not only is it hard to pull women in, it's hard to keep women in the industry. And so if we can do a small, a small contribution to that by creating a network and a space where people can start to thrive in their roles, then hopefully that will help.
Okay. I touched on this, but the current state of tech in general, is that we know there's something like between 19 and I think it's 22% of people in tech that are women. And you alluded to what was the number you mentioned for testing?
Less than 35% of women make up software testing roles.
Yeah. So I don't know if you were aware, obviously last year we had lots of redundancies, and the state of the roles within the industry completely changed.
Yeah.
I saw some really random jobs last year. One of them was a quality engineer, data scientist, and you needed skills as a quality engineer, data scientist, machine learning expert. You needed to be a software engineer as well. They wanted the whole gamut for 60 grand a year. And, with those kind of big changes where I think clients don't really know what they want, but they know they want to reduce headcount where it comes to people in quality. What do you both think about the state of the industry for women right now? And being, we're in a safe space, be honest as you can, because I think that a lot of people don't have enough information. And so, they're not able to make informed decisions about what they do next for their careers.
I can take this from a recruitment lens and from the forefront of the redundancies, and I guess that the brunt, as you would put it, of a lot of people who were in crisis mode, a lot of businesses that are in crisis mode who don't necessarily know what to do. The buzzword of diversity, you hear, we need more women in our team, and that's how they brand diversity, if you will. Women are a tiny segment of diversity as a whole, but you're asked to focus on that in the state of redundancies, in the state of where nobody really knows what they need to hire. Like you said, skill set wise, we're asking for everything because the trends are so rapidly changing with AI, machine learning, data. There's so much. it's really hard, not just for women, it's hard for everyone at the moment to find their next role. Or do we specialise? Do we go broad? What do we do? What's the trends? It's from a recruitment perspective, it's difficult to know what to do as a candidate. And I feel for anyone who's currently looking for their next role, I think what we need to be focusing on is how can we help elevate voices that we currently, and also the skills that we currently have, to transition them into different types of roles within the market. But the current state of it, it's not great. Hopefully things like education and communities like Women in Test can help with getting that into businesses and helping them understand the benefits of hiring more women and retaining women as well.
Anything else?
Yeah, I find that a really difficult question to answer because I'm very much probably like in my role and quite, in decisions in a way. But one thing that I've seen from like other peers is that don't underestimate your value. In testing, we do so much. One of the reasons I went from a developer, given like 100-page spec and just go away, and I mean this is a long time ago, go away and develop, to becoming a tester is because I really enjoyed working with stakeholders, understanding the business, understanding the technology. I was coding, I was writing automation, but then I was actually presenting what I was doing. And I just think we've got so many transferable skills, just don't underestimate that. And just as, as part of testing, we're curious, we like to learn, because that's what we're doing day in, day out. Use those skills or those strengths to learn new skills, diversify, because I think, yeah, a company might want somebody with like a graduate with 20 years experience. Yeah, right. With all of these skills, but actually don't undervalue or underestimate what you bring to the table. And even we're told that women want to have, what is it, 80%, like tick the, or 90% want to tick the boxes on those job specs before they go for them. I would say don't necessarily do that. And I'm saying that from a recruiter's point of view as well. I've recruited for lots of and built lots of teams. And if somebody hasn't got the latest tool or the latest technology or the latest language, I look much more for the person and what they are capable of in the future, not necessarily what they've done or had the opportunity to do so far. And I think everyone here, whether you are a lead or whether you are within a team, you've all got agency. You can all really talk with your teams, with your leaders, with your manager, and really start selling your value and understanding how to do that. And if you don't know how to do that, build networks, ask other people. I mean, just like today is a great example where we're getting so many insights, so much opportunity to speak to each other, find out how are other people doing that within the organization.
And I want to add, it's not all doom and gloom either. I mean, the current state is not great, but as if you were in Paul's talk, we've seen there's so much, the future looks really positive. We're not seeing that right now in terms of live roles, but it's going in that direction. It will take a bit of time to recover. I think the last 2 years, especially in the market, have been rough, especially for testing. That's undeniable, but the future, it's getting positive.
So I'm going to add to that, so we have got time. So I love both of your views about that. From someone who's been inside of that bubble kind of thing, I would actually say it's really upon hiring managers to try and influence. If you've got internal recruiters, it's really important to, as we were saying, about knowing the value of what you do, what your teams do, and making sure that that's being communicated to CTOs and to anybody else who may be responsible for making decisions about quality teams or test team budgets. It's really important that they understand the value, because with everything that's happening with AI, with Gen AI, I should say, the tooling requirements, especially in smaller companies, are changing. And there's this element of chatter in industry that quality teams are nowhere near as qualified or skilled to take us to this next level. And we've got to nip all of that in the bud. We've got to stop it because we're highly skilled. We've got loads of really amazing skills that we can offer outside of just heads down and operating the tools. And it's about process, it's about understanding, working with people, and all of those skills come into play when we're working. And really, just being able to show your value means that you extend the life of your role within a company, because they'll see your value and they won't think, oh, in the next round, we need to get rid of these people. But just note that you can never learn all of the tools that are coming out at the moment. I think you just need to work on how you can add value to your current company. And if you can bring in new ideas for working, do that, show your strategic mind, if you like. Make sure that you're trying to let them to integrate new tools into what you're doing and into the processes that you've got and framework. And showing your value there will be really, really important at this point. I don't think anyone can physically learn everything, but the idea that we're on the back foot as people in quality, that's really rubbish, because we do as much training as developers. We just have a different mindset and a slightly different direction in the way that we look at things, but ultimately we're all there to build products and to reach goals. So really working more closely with your teams and understanding their needs is important as well. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. Okay, so last question. So we don't have somebody who was supposed to be here today, Marianne Lockley, by the way. Yeah, she couldn't come in today, so we're down to the 3 on the panel. So we may finish slightly earlier, but last question: what are the next steps for Women in Test?
You want to go first?
You take it.
So we're really excited. I mean, we started in January and we had so many plans to have done so much within 6 months. But as you all know, when you've got day jobs and this is kind of an extra thing, it's hard to get things into place. So there's my caveat, or apologies for not doing more. But in terms of what we want to do, you talked about our Finding Your Voice series. We've got so much more planned. So Gomathi and Nicola did a great first webinar. We hope to do more. We've got so much more content to help women. We want to do mentorship. We've done some spotlights. So one thing we found with women is that people don't feel like they want to share some of their accomplishments because it's like it's never good enough, rather than thinking, oh, actually what you've done is pretty amazing. We are our worst critics sometimes. So we want to actually start spotlighting more women, and we've done that on LinkedIn, and we want to do much more of that. So if you want to nominate someone or put yourself forward, we love people putting themselves forward as well, because it's just great.
Is there a Google form or something?
We've done that. We
Yeah,
just haven't.
we have.
Yeah, we
can share it.
Yeah, we will share.
But a good place is our LinkedIn page. We're posting our next
Yeah.
webinar will be in July, which will be similar on the Finding Your Voice. It's the same theme, but this is specifically for building your own network and around LinkedIn, and also how to build a personal brand. It's something I personally invested in over the last 12 months, and I wouldn't be in the role that I'm in today if I hadn't done that. I wouldn't have met Nikki. I wouldn't be speaking here if I hadn't invested in building a personal brand. And women in particular are very bad at doing that and not putting themselves out there. So LinkedIn is a really good place to find all the information that you need for Women in Test. And we can send our Google form as well if you want to get involved, not just from a spotlight point of view. You want to speak. If you're a first-time speaker as well, love to have you on a webinar. It's a very safe space. The community is so welcoming. The feedback that we have is fantastic. So if you want to speak for the first time, if you want to get involved with writing articles, if you've got any great resources that you want to share with the community as well, you can get involved.
One thing recently I saw a post and somebody had curated their favourite books. And I thought the books were absolutely brilliant, but there wasn't one book that was from a woman. And yet one of my favourite books was actually written by a woman, Katja, on shift left testing. I was like, so I messaged her, please let us do a LinkedIn post so that we can spotlight you and your book, because her book was so helpful to me. So we really do want to showcase more women. And it's not to say that those books that were, you know, curated on that feed, they were great. I'm not saying that at all. It's just we want to give more people the opportunity.
Okay, that's it. And I think we might be out of time as well, actually. See Mike.
I have a question.
Oh,
If we have time.
Yeah.
Okay, just the
Keep
lead.
your
Like,
hands
don't worry
up.
about
It's just that we're at time, because I think what time's the next talk?
Next talk is 1:50, Jonathan Wright.
Oh,
You might have time. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
There's not enough women in tech, but there's also not enough women in STEM.
right.
And for many years I've been, okay, we're only complaining there's not enough women, but a lot of girls don't want to study STEM. How do we welcome more girls in their teenage years
So
to
that's
see the opportunity?
That's
to-
a really difficult one, because as they get towards exams and like doing GCSEs, for example, and then going to college, if that's what they do, and then on to university, you'll note there's a big drop off in numbers of women who are interested in STEM careers. So it's on us as people within the community to work more closely with schools, although it's very hard to get into schools to do talks. If you can get things like become a STEM ambassador, for example, and put yourself forward to different organisations, say the BCS, if you remember, or Women's Engineering Society actually do have close connections with companies who are then able to go into schools and give talks. That's where you meet lots of young people, young women, for example, who are keen to get into STEM careers, but just don't have anyone talking to them about that. And then you also find when you go into colleges that or when you speak to people from colleges that they also haven't had any advice or don't have, they might have signed up for a course being told you will get support and advice, and then you find they don't have it. So by the time they're halfway through, or even if they make it to the end, they're disillusioned and drop out. That's got to change. You know, the organisations like the BCS, like Women's Engineering Society, need to work much more closely with the institutions to make sure that they are giving them the right information, that people have access to advice and mentors, so that they can then, you know, make informed decisions about what they want to do about their careers. Because college and uni will only give you so much, but you do need to do like boot camps and things like that to give you that extra edge, because as we're finding lots of hiring managers at the moment are not looking for people straight out of college or straight out of uni. The graduate schemes are diminishing. And so we need to work more with the companies as well as the organizations, the institutions, to make sure that they know the value of people coming out of college courses, I think. And that way, that will encourage more girls to see people who are young like them going into those tech careers, or else they won't. I hope that helps.
I was going to add, I don't think it's that they don't want to go into STEM, it's that they don't know what STEM leads to for them. They're being told you could do STEM, but there's not that education around where do you go, like what career could you have, or what skills can you utilise as part of STEM. So we need to catch it at an age way before GCSEs, way before. I was told in school, why would you sign up for IT or business? And that wasn't that long ago. I'm in my mid-20s. So, you know, I was told it's a class of all boys. Why would you study that? So naturally for me, it was English, communications, dance, music. So, and that was the route I was told to go down. So we need to catch them a lot earlier on and educate them around what to do.
Now, add to that, I went to a school last year and it was girls and boys, you know, mid-teens, late teens, and they were saying to me, we don't want roles in tech. It was an engineering thing generally, so there was mechanical engineers, all kinds of different backgrounds, but when it came to tech, I said, have you considered a career in tech? And a couple of them said to me, no, we don't want roles in tech because people get made redundant all the time. So it's not a job that will last. There's another thing. Whilst we know that the average time in a tech role is about 18 months to 2 years, if people don't see that there's something that they could really get their teeth into or that has any longevity, they're very keen not to. pick it as a career. So we need to be letting organisations know that their decisions are having repercussions earlier in the process.
Yeah, for sure.
And how do you keep them? I know many years ago Accenture did a survey and they found at analyst level, you had 50-50 split, but as the women got older, the numbers got less, so you've got less numbers, less going into management, less being promoted. So how do you, what are the reasons behind some of the women leaving testing?
Really,
I'm
because this is
leaving you
a big thing for me.
Passionate, very passionate.
So I don't think that we've got the answer to that. And I think it will depend on the organisation and what the organisation has in place in order to support women throughout their whole lifespan, really.
The lack of
And
support.
yeah, definitely. I know that, for example, the organisation I'm at will support women through going through menopausal changes and all of the things that brings. But you know, not just that, but any sort of hormonal changes throughout their career. But not every organisation has that, and those are not. When you start to have certain challenges, it's not always the place to talk in your agile scrum team or
It seems to
you
boom,
know,
doesn't it?
yeah, exactly. But the more organizations are starting to realize that they need to support it, and the more the structure is there in place. And actually, I think I did say one thing earlier that I read, I can't remember where, so apologies if I've copied any of you, but this whole like over mentored, under sponsored, that's another reason, because you can get so far, but without sponsors, then it's really difficult to take that next step to leadership. And one of the things in Women in Test, and we hope that we can actually support, is women to find their own boardroom, because if they can't find their boardroom where they are actually working, then hopefully we can create that for them, and they can find sponsors and be connected with other women or other men as well, that can kind of like give them their hand and call them up and recognize the potential that women have that they may not have had the opportunity to fulfill.
And the only thing I wanted to add on that is it's the organisation, it's the benefits that they can offer as well, looking at paternity leave, maternity leave, flexible working, an amazing company called Flexa. If you've not looked into them, they've got some great insights on LinkedIn. I really encourage anyone to look. But if you're working in set hours, if you're not given the opportunity to have equal pay for paternity and maternity, it makes it impossible to be able to keep them who might want to become mothers like at those level roles. So it's the organisations, we need to look at our benefits and we need to facilitate that to keep people for longer.
Yeah, free. I would actually put that out to everybody. And if you go for a new job, you need to know what their benefits are, and don't accept free biscuits. It's just not enough anymore. And certainly if they don't have a very diverse set of benefits, that's ask. But
need to speak
you know,
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
say something. And this is another reason why so many women don't apply for jobs, right?
I've got a quick question, please. I'm an ally to all of you as well, and I'll help as much as I can. So, what steps can people like myself do to help encourage more women and help reach out to female STEM as well, and encouraging girls from college, university, and even people who are saying changing careers later on in life. My wife being an example, she's wanting to become a web developer. So how can we help support people like her and other people who may consider changing careers?
I think it all starts from one, listening and creating a space where the women in your team or in your life, wherever it is, they know that you're listening, and you create that space for them to talk quite openly and freely about their challenges in a judgment-free zone, especially in the workplace, allowing them that opportunity, whether it's a one-on-one conversation first of all, and then you can be that advocate for them. You know, they might not feel comfortable to escalate anything themselves, but if you have those conversations and normalize it with other male colleagues in the workplace, then it takes the kind of awkwardness away from the conversations not happening. So.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Steve, you were first.
Thanks. Just one question. Hannah, you mentioned the statistics and you said about 19% overall in tech and 33% in testing, which does suggest testing is in a bit of a better place. I understand it's not perfect. My last team, I had 9 women and 2 men. So I've seen it flipped around, but it made me think, is the problem wider than just women in test? Isn't it women in tech overall?
Yeah,
Because we want to give people opportunities to spread. So taking the question you had earlier, how do we encourage women to take on roles that there's been even less representation, like development? I can't think of very many women developers, but I can think of a load of women testers.
Yeah.
And that's not right.
find
How do we do that?
You'll find that because the conversations I always have with people, they always end up with, I was told to join a QA team or a test team because that was the easiest way to get into tech. I didn't have to have any real experience in any other area. Whereas if you're going for a software engineering role, there's an expectation that you've got some industry experience behind you. Most teams, if they're not looking for graduates, are looking for minimum 1 or 2 years experience. And a lot of people don't have that. A lot of women don't have that. And also it's about the way that, I'm going to go on about agile a little bit, but if you've got agile teams, they tend to be very lean. They only have specific skill sets, or, you know, they have a certain number of people in a ratio from developers to testers. You'll find that most of your test team will maybe be embedded. For example, you'll have one person within a team. That person, if they're a woman, will end up working with a ton of men. They're the type of things that over time can drive people to leave a role or leave a company. I've got a colleague who does a talk about the agile paradox, and in Women of Silicon Roundabout a couple of years ago, we did this workshop and we had over 80 people in the room, some people in tears talking about their experience as women working within software engineering teams. Some of them were testers. And it can be quite shocking. Like you were saying, you don't talk about your problems on a stand-up or, you know, whatever. You know, it's that thing of, because the workplace is now becoming so different in the way that we work, there are no safe spaces for people to speak. So you'll tend to end up with people leaving with, and I'm going to the extreme here, but they might be leaving with mental health issues or something, or, you know, they don't tend to then want to maybe stay in the company because there's no support. And so if you're in an area of like testing where we do tend to see more women in that space, I will agree with you there. I think that's because of some teams maybe offshore, for example, tend to have large amounts of women working within teams, but the burnout rate is high as well there. You see a high staff turnover, and, you know, changes of people on projects all the time. So it's not as perfect as we've got more women. I just think that we also see a high turnover of staff. That people tend to move away more quickly, or like we're saying, you know, like the redundancies that happen because they're feeling that people don't have the right skill set to be developers. And if that's the case and we've got more women, it's going to affect testing. We are.
Just 1 minute.
Don't want to watch
One final.
Just a quick one question.
You did mention that the leadership roles, women in leadership roles are very low. So have you tried to identify the gaps and how can we fill in those?
Great question. When you say identify the gaps,
The reasons why there are not much people in the leadership roles.
yeah, I think it's a combination of things that we mentioned. It goes back to the organisations not being set up from a benefits perspective to support women who, if you want to go part, if you're a working mum, do you have the option for flexible working? Do you have the option to drop to 4 days a week? Can you change your working hours? Can you go and do a school pickup? So, and I'm just talking about a very small area of a working mum, right? And there could be so many other reasons. You might be a carer, this goes beyond women, right? But if we're talking about women in leadership, are organisations set up? No. I think we're still figuring out this post-COVID hybrid remote on-site. It's all a bit strange at the moment, but we are seeing more companies moving more towards better benefits. The other thing is what Nikki was speaking about with the over-mentored and under-sponsored. So they're the two main gaps, I think. Sorry, I know we're getting pushed out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're out of time.
Okay, thank you.